Hi, I'm Jake.
And I'm Tim, and you don't want to know what we were just talking about?
Maybe they do.
No. Anyhow, the Scofield Study Bible.
Uh-oh.
The old Scofield Study Bible. Anniversary edition with the classic 1917 notes in the authorized King James Version. Just a few features here on this box. I actually bought this from a local Christian bookstore because I love local businesses and I want to see them survive. And during this time, it's been very difficult for a lot of them. Most local businesses have lost some odd 80% of their business. So I'm doing my best I can to help. But anyway, some features. It's got a traditional typesetting that is preferred by many longtime old Scofield readers. It is an unparalleled subject-based topical chain reference system, which is don't even go to any. This is nothing like the Thompson chain reference, but it does have a chain reference system. Enlightening introductions, complete outline subheadings, illuminating same-page explanatory notes, which is like a commentary, comprehensive indexes to annotations with integrated subject index dictionary of subject proper names.
Wow, that's a lot of big words.
So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. A detailed study Bible concordance, and 16 pages of accurate full-color New Oxford maps with indexes, and the maps are actually pretty cool in this thing. So anyway, first off, let's go over the construction of the Bible as far as I can tell. It is a bonded leather cover, and got a nice spine. It doesn't have the raised hubs, but it's got like indented hubs kind of thing to give it the illusion of having hubs. Gilded. I think I just said it's bonded leather. It's got really thin paper, but it's kind of like your Thompson. It feels like your TCR paper, I think. Give it a... It feels tough, but thin.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff in this Bible.
So anyhow, it has the traditional... It is printed in Korea.
Wait a second, which part?
Well, it doesn't clarify.
Is it because it's from 1917 and it didn't really matter?
Well, I don't know. I'd say it was probably published in the U.S. back in the 1917 era. I would just say it's printed in South Korea, would be my guess. But anyhow, it's got your introduction to be read. Now, the interesting thing about this introduction is it's broken into parts. And first part is saying that they felt the old system was references, was based on Old English words, and blah, blah, blah. And then it talks about the interest in Bible study kind of growing. Now, we're talking about 1917 here. So Bible studies were pretty uncommon in that time.
Okay,
so study Bibles. I'm sorry, not Bible studies.
So as in 1917, this introduction is what would have been included in the original 1917 Bible.
What we were looking at, other than the fact that it's acknowledged that it is a reissue, which I don't remember where that is.
Okay, so it talks a little bit about it right here where the name changed.
Right. This page is the only thing that's going to be really different.
But it literally says not one word has been altered, added, or deleted. They just changed the name.
Right. So once you get to this point, this is the Scofield Reference Bible. Okay. It talks about, now when it says the last 50 years, it's talking about like starting in the 1860s. Okay. You don't see a lot of study Bibles from the 1800s. So this thing was revolutionary in its time. Helps have been provided, topical lines of reference, scriptures as some of the words like adoption, advocacy, assurance, and all those are broken down. Each book is provided with an introduction. It goes on. I don't want to take a bunch of time, but it gives you several points. And this is really interesting. It talks about the panoramic view of the Bible, and it gives you some breakdowns here. First, the Bible is one book, so they're wanting to help you to understand that this is, although it's 66 books, it's really one story. And then the Bible is the book of books. This isn't your ordinary books. Then third, the books of the Bible fall into groups. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The Old Testament is preparation for Messiah.
Sure.
The Gospels are the manifestation of the Messiah.
Agreed.
The Acts are the propagation of the Messiah, or the advertising or telling of the Messiah. The epistles are the explanation of the Messiah. And then the apocalypse is the consummation of the Messiah. So they break the Bible down into 5 groups. thought that was really interesting. And then they break the Old Testament down into redemption, organization, poetry, and sermons. So they put the prophets in this group of sermons. So it's really super interesting how he breaks this thing down. Now, another really interesting thing here is he has a way of how to use your references, your subject references. One thing that sets the Scofield Bible apart from your other study Bibles is its cross-referencing system. Okay, now and it shows you how whenever there is a parenthetical reference, it tells you the first mention of whatever it's referencing, Genesis 12:1, and then it gives you the last reference of it being mentioned, which is in Revelation. So if you want to know the first and last mention, because anyone that knows hermeneutics knows that there is the law of first mention. The law of first mention basically means that when you see something mentioned first, any mention of it afterwards is built on that first mention. You can't interpret it differently because you may have a different context, a different subtext, a different circumstance. You still have to go back to its original first mention in order to get the meaning of whatever is being said. That is a killer thing to have in a study Bible, to where you can get its first and last mention, and you know that the last mention is probably going to end up being the fulfillment of the first mention. Another unique thing about his cross-referencing system is the dates. At the top, this says BC 4004. Now you will notice, Jake, if you will be pretty for a minute.
Always.
I want to get this out. This is Bishop Ussher's Annals of the World. Don't say annals, because then you'll sound anal.
I feel like saying annals.
Yeah. Annals of the World. And you will notice this is a book of the history of the world. And if you go to the beginning of this book, you will notice it says 4004 BC.
So when was this book published? When did they write this?
Oh, man, I don't know. The first printing was 2003, but this book...
That's way back.
No. This book was written like in the 1500s, I think. Bishop Ussher has been dead for hundreds of years.
Gotcha. So Scofield would have referenced something like this to get that date.
He would have had to. There's no other way he could have came up with this date, because Bishop Ussher was the one that one of the ones that coined this idea. Now, I'm not saying Bishop Ussher was the only one, but I'm saying Bishop Ussher is the one that made it popular.
So is this just a suggested, hey, this might be BC 4004, or are they saying...
According to Bishop Ussher, he used the genealogies. I feel like I'm reviewing two books at once here, but...
this is important.
He thinks the world started on 1 a.m., 710 JP, 4004 BC.
1 a.m. Good.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah. It's... I don't know how he got that date. But, in fact, I think so by the fifth day, we're on Thursday, October 27th. That's pretty precise.
You know what? That's a really good question that we should pose to the viewers. Was this an actual date that was supported by any type of science, or was this just a shot in the dark?
I'm going to guess shot in the dark, but no. But anyhow, so you have these dates. So now, I don't believe the Earth is 6,024 years old. But I also don't believe the Earth is billions and billions and billions of years old either.
What does Ken Ham tell you?
Well, Ken Ham needs to pay his taxes.
Oh, snap.
So as you go throughout here, it shows you what the proposed date is. Now you can see several thousand years has already passed by the time we get to Genesis chapter 16. Now this is really interesting. It gives you the chapter and first verse reference here. It took me a second to figure out what this was. And then it gives you the chapter and closing verse reference.
Oh, that is very useful.
It is. It's pretty neat. I like that. So anyhow, you'll notice that sometimes he's very lean on the commentary. He gave his own headings. These are not your traditional headings. And they serve a purpose. And they have some little cross-referencing happening in some of the headings as well. His commentary is very legible. The text, I'm going to say the font is probably about an 8. It's not listed anywhere, and I didn't see anything about it online.
I'd say you're pretty close.
Yeah, and like the Psalms, the commentary is very lean in the Psalms. You don't see a whole lot of, but then you have the dates here. I just thought that was interesting. And let's see. One of these days I'm going to find something that's really good. Now, he breaks them down into categories. Now, this is something interesting. Okay, because first, number one, I didn't even know prophetical was a word.
I use it all the time.
But I dig it. Prophetical it's look, the prophetical books.
Yeah. That, prophetalist, the leaves.
Yeah.
I use
So anyhow, he breaks down the prophetic books and their role, and then it has a nice little introduction. And then he breaks the prophetical books down into parts. Part one, looking toward the captivities. And I'm not going to dig through this to show you each part he breaks down, but it's still, man, this paper is just, it's thin but tough. It is not line matched.
Yeah.
It's not line matched, so your ghosting it's not really a problem. It's definitely there.
The ink is kind of dark, so...
Yeah. So let's go to your next prophetical book. And this shows you, Jeremiah is also broken down in parts, and this is part 2. And it's prophecies, not chronological. So this is interesting because he's giving you these little date stamps on his cross-reference system, but then he's about to tell you, look, we're going to be jumping all over the place here in a minute because this isn't in order. This one's BC 606, and if you'll notice back here, we're in BC 596, BC 599. So now we're back to 590. So we go to 606 to 590. So the timeline's kind of jumping all over the place here because now we're back in 600.
And you can almost guarantee that this is going to be way more accurate than the numbers all the way back into Genesis because, I mean, you're talking the captivity of Israel at that point. That is well documented.
Right.
Not just in the Bible. It happened.
Yeah. So then we have the 4 Gospels, and he kind of breaks them down, and he gives parts. Old Testament is divinely provided instruction to the New Testament. Mm-hmm. And then the mission of Jesus was primarily to the Jews. Now, this gets really interesting. The doctrines of grace are to be sought in the epistles, not in the Gospels. Now, that's an interesting thought. Something we don't have time to dive into. So Scofield, the Gospels do not unfold the doctrine of the church, which I agree. The Gospels don't tell you how to function as a church. Paul does that.
Right. The church was not built until Jesus ascended.
Right. And Jesus clearly affirmed the church. Upon this rock I'll build my church.
Sure.
And boy, that's a big argument. Ecclesia, and what's that mean? And, yeah.
Well, Peter had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get to the next part. Now, this is super interesting. Okay, because we have the Pauline epistles. And I'm going to tell you something. This is a detail I've never caught in the canonical arrangement of the Bible. This kind of opened my eyes. You have your Pauline letters, which were primarily to the Gentiles. And then once you get to Hebrews, now look, there's going to be somebody that says, you've been in ministry this many years. How could you have not caught this detail? Mm-hmm. Okay? And you're going to comment. And
is he standing in this room right now?
I'm okay with that. If he is, I don't care. I'm talking about people outside of this room. And you over there, you don't count. So anyhow, I never realized that they were arranged Gentile letters, Jewish letters.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I never realized it. I mean, I'm sure that I could have, but it's just, I never thought of it. So then you get into Hebrews, and all these letters focus on Jewish folks. James, John. So, the intentional arrangement of the canonical version is actually way much cooler to me now.
Right. And it all kicks off when Barnabas wrote Hebrews.
Mm-hmm. Or whomever.
I said Barnabas.
Whomever wrote it.
You heard me. Okay,
so now we have a dictionary of Scripture proper names, which is pretty neat. So you have all these proper names, and it kind of breaks down the meaning of each. It's like, how many times have you wondered, what does this person's name mean? And your Bible may not have a reference system that immediately explains it, or you may not have a modern. There's 2 ways to do names. Number one, you can either transliterate it, and then it's like the person's name, quick to the spoils, quick to the splendor, which happens in the Old Testament. Or you can just not. And then you're like, I wonder what that name means. Well, now you have a dictionary.
And what's really interesting is quite often names were very prophetic.
Yep, they were important. Don't name your kid something stupid.
Yeah, don't call them idiot.
Yeah.
Well,
But learn what the name means.
yeah.
Yeah. Subject index. So that's self-explanatory. It is your index of subjects. And then we have our concordance, which is pretty standard to the course. Very, very tiny print. I'm going to say like 6-point tiny.
Maybe. That's small.
And then the maps. Now, the maps are cool in this thing. I'm going to go to the back so we can find it easily, but the maps are on standard paper.
Look at that.
Now, this is not the first Bible we found this way. I prefer my maps on standard paper like this. They're very bold colors, pretty. They're small, but this is a handy size.
Okay, so you got your latitude and longitude, which you don't normally see.
Now, this is old. This is 100 and some years old, so you're going to have maps that have this older look. There's the Promised Land, Egypt, Sinai Peninsula. I'm sure it's going to say Palestine, which always kind of annoys me, but whatever. Yeah, land of the nations of the Bible. Now, I do want to show you one more thing because it is a little disappointing.
Uh-oh.
Oh, go back. There you go. Those red letters are awful.
Actually, it's showing up on camera pretty decent. But
Yeah, the camera is.
trust us.
It's almost like pink. It's pretty terrible.
It doesn't really hurt the eye, but it's causing it to
Hurts
blur.
it hurts my feelings.
It blurs when you're trying to read it.
It hurts my feelings to look at this thing. But I'm going to tell you something. This thing is a page turner, in the sense that the pages turn beautifully. They don't get stuck together. I mean, I opened it and I had to break in the gilding a little bit. Speaking of the gilding, it's pretty nice. It's not bad at all. It's not art gilded, so you lose the color. But this thing is really slick. Comes with one standard ribbon. Headband, tailband look pretty good. It is
connected.
It is a sewn binding. I'm going to go ahead and pull these guys out of here. And that's my system there. So anyway, this thing is pretty slick. I got it for under $30, so not bad. And I tell you, it's probably almost immediately one of my favorites. Oh, one more thing we forgot to mention is that Scofield was a dispensationalist.
There he goes.
Yeah, he mentions he is a dispensationalist in here, so he is going to have a dispensational theology. So I am a dispensationalist myself, so I prefer dispensational theology. I'm not a covenant theologian. I don't think that Israel has been replaced in God's plan. I believe that they are still intact. Now, that's up for interpretation and different ideas and concepts there, but ultimately, I do not believe the church has replaced Israel in God's plan. I believe we work alongside with Israel. Now, that can be very controversial. There's all kinds of different issues there, which I'm not willing to get into today, but this is a great Bible. And for a great price, this bonded leather cover, check out the liner on this thing. I mean, that is not a bad liner at all.
Some sort of a synthetic.
Yeah, but it's not your paper stiff. I mean, this thing doesn't feel stiff. It's I mean, you open it and it wants to lay nice and flat. Doesn't do like your premiums and get all floppy. But
When you're talking bonded leather, while it's not been in our hands very long, that's about as decent as you're going to get.
yeah, this is as good a bonded leather as you are going to get. It feels as good as some genuine leather.
Don't get me started.
Crossway owns the market on genuine leather covers. They are fantastic. But anyhow, life is always sweeter.
When you start your day.
Did I mess it up?
When you start your day.
Yeah, life is just PT&J.
Life is always sweeter
Yeah.
when you start your day with a heaping helping of PT&J.
Bye.